Hello, my name is Benji and welcome to Dice vs Cards. Today we continue our focus on Warhammer, Age of Sigmar. We've already talked about why you chose this game system and how to get started in it, but today we bring you the story time, as we set the scene for its history and its inhabitants. As with all good stories, they need to have a beginning, but not all are preceded by an end. In a time long ago, there was a world inhabited with swords and sorcery fantasy archetypes, both big and small. This was the home of the Age of Sigmar's predecessor, Warhammer Fantasy Battle, where many races and heroes forged their legends through endless wars. But as all things must invariably come to an end, in entered stage right Archaon the Ever-Chosen, the primary champion of the Chaos Gods, who, despite encountering brave opposition from the races that fought for their homeland, ultimately prevailed and split the world asunder. Life, as they say though, always finds a way. Against all odds, there were some that had survived the Great Sundering, including those with the power to effect great change. One such individual was the war god of mankind, Sigmar, who held on for dear life to the old world and traversed the abyss in agony for a period of time that even he could not disseminate. As luck would have it though, Dracothion, a great celestial drake, would happen upon Sigmar and deliver him unto the mortal realms, those remnants of the old world that had reformed into multiple great planes. This event marked the commencement of the Age of Myth. Sigmar set out to explore the 8 mortal realms, and in doing so was able to revive many of the gods from the old world, both allies of mankind and those that were previously considered enemies. Alas, Sigmar knew that he would need every ally, reluctant or no, to join forces and prepare for the inevitable return of the Chaos Gods and their retinue. This pantheon of gods, which included amongst others Alariel, the divine being of the nature-loving Sylvaneth, Gorkamorka, the deity of the Aurochs and Grots, and Nagash, the supreme being of all things undead, was formed in Azirheim, on Sigmar's home realm of Azir, and set out all with one goal in mind: to grow and prosper. This was to be achieved in a number of ways, from the nurturing and offer of protection to primitive beings that would help build these brave new realms, to the hunt and either banishment or slaying of powerful beings and artifacts that had no desire to usher in this brave new world. They were even able to go one step further and imprison one of the 4 Chaos Gods, Slaanesh. This ultimately led to a golden age of prosperity where cultures lived in relative harmony. However, as in times of old, the lure and false promise of immense power from the Chaos Gods began to insidiously creep its way into the hearts and minds of the mortal races. And thus began the Age of Chaos, with a familiar face at the helm, Archaon. His great army had secreted themselves to the mortal realms with the aid of those that worshipped the Chaos Gods. The titanic battles that ensued would shape the future of the mortal realms. At first the old races stood firm. With their gods standing behind Sigmar, they were clearly greater as allies than they could ever have been splintered. But as time passed, cracks began to appear in this brave alliance. The gods started to resent Sigmar as their own realms were left undefended, which the Chaos forces duly capitalised on. And one by one, this band of brothers and sisters fell apart, leaving Archaon to take full advantage. In desperation, Sigmar was tricked into diluting his power by hurling his legendary weapon Galmaraz into the void and across the mortal realms, thus making him too weak to face Archaon directly. This led to him forcing a hasty retreat back to Azir, his home realm, gifting the Chaos Hordes a foothold at all points, the most strategic of realm gates, which were portals that allowed for travel between realms. Without a unified front to oppose them, Archaon and those that worshipped the Chaos Gods were able to spread their plague across each of the realms, razing and decimating civilizations and forcing others to join their cause just to survive. the golden age of growth and prosperity had very quickly been turned upside down. The story could of course not end on such a somber note. Sigmar and the other gods would not be bowed forever by the recurring threat of chaos, and so begun the Age of Sigmar. The tale that has and will unfold throughout the life cycle of the game. Whilst the other gods considered how they would reclaim what they had lost, Sigmar knew he could no longer face the forces of chaos directly on the field of battle, lest he be defeated and all hope lost. He knew he must instead lead others to victory across the mortal realms. Sigmar needed a new army. Plucking mortal souls moments from their demise, he forged them anew, embedding them with great power, weapons and armour. These were his Stormcast Eternals. The gates of Azir were then flung open, and his Stormcast was sent across the mortal realms upon bolts of lightning. The Age of Sigmar had begun. When the game was initially released in 2015, it commenced the story of the Realm Gate Wars, a number of battles led by the Stormcast that would aim to recover control of all of the Realm Gates, with the logic being that this was the only reliable way to ensure that the races that still opposed chaos could conceivably continue to fight the good fight. Gal Maraz, the weapon that had previously been lost to Sigmar, was regained from the Chaos God Tzeentch, and around this time the Sigmarite forces were able to come to the aid of the Sylvaneth, led by the god Alariel, mending, in part at least, the bitterness between the two gods, and sowing the seeds for a new grand alliance of order. However, not all was heading in the right direction for those that opposed chaos. The Aurochs, who worshipped the mighty god Gorkamorka, allied with the Ogres, Grots and Gargants, bestowing mischief and mayhem wherever they went, and thus forming the Grand Alliance of Destruction. Similarly, the forces of Death, led by Nagash, who had previously betrayed Sigmar during the Age of Chaos, continued their efforts to ensure that all of the mortal realms would be plagued by death, in so doing forming the Grand Alliance of Death. With these four grand alliances of order, chaos, death and destruction now all vying for power, a second major storyline was introduced, that of the NECROQUAKE, an event that was precipitated by Nagash, who was attempting to create death magic, a power that would allow all those that had died past and present to be raised in order to bolster the armies of death. However, the Chaos aligned Skaven were wise to this attempt, and were able to sabotage Nagash before he was able to complete his ritual. Not however before the process had irrevocably tainted the remaining forces of magic. Alas, this event had a number of unintended side effects. Ghouls and geists found their way to the mortal realms, joining the forces of death, and endless spells, more or less sentient in nature, would travel near and far. Perhaps more concerningly though, those powerful beings and mystical artifacts that had been imprisoned and locked in storm vaults during the Age of Myth were no longer hidden from the remaining inhabitants of the mortal realms. It is widely expected that these are the tales that will unfold in the next chapters of this here story. So I really do hope you enjoyed this brief history and introduction to the lore of Age of Sigmar. However, that's it from me. I'll see you next time.